I know this title sounds like clickbait, but it's not, really, and I'll explain why. You know, I've sold a lot of bikes I've made over the years, pretty much all of them. In the past, I would be very sentimentally attached to the things I have made. When you spend a lot of time working on something, the blood, sweat, the frustrating problem solving, and all the hours put in, there is somewhat of a connection that is made with the object that you have been crafting. I've had many of my friends and family members say to me, "How can you sell this?" or "No, don't sell it, come on, you have to keep this one." And I understand their perspective. However, I've owned enough things to realize that at some point it's not worth piling up more stuff, even if that stuff is very cool. Somewhere along the way, I have adopted a more minimal perspective on things, which has allowed me to let go of things that I wouldn't have been able to in the past. I started creating a frame in my mind where it was less about the object and more about myself. Each project is either a progression to further my skills or attempting to take it to the next level. Of course, they all won't be over-the-top bangers, and sometimes I need to take a break to build something easier, but I've realized that the build's actual purpose is to help create more skills within myself. This has made it a lot easier to let go of the projects I have made as they make room for the next ones. There's also a financial element, as if I keep making expensive projects and keep them, then I need a place to store everything and I also need to maintain them. Then there's also the fact that I need to continually buy new expensive components or tools to make the next ones. Meanwhile, there's a lot of value tied up in the things that are otherwise just sitting around and collecting dust unused. Since creating the build is the purpose, then the actual marginal utility of the bike for me personally is mostly gone after it is created. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy riding the bikes I have made, but it's not as important to me than building something new. So, by selling my creations, it also generates a way to recycle those funds to build new projects, and then the progress continues. I suppose it would be nice to keep all of my creations, but then you're stuck in a Jay Leno type situation where you'd need a team of employees and a warehouse just to keep and maintain and secure all of your objects. There was a time in my life where I owned 5 cars at the same time, and it just became madness trying to keep them all insured, maintained, even just making sure they were all driven enough to keep the batteries charged and fuel in their tanks. It was just way too much to handle. My mindset now is that if I really miss a bike that I've made before and I can't stand the thought of not owning it again, then I will just make another one and make it even better than the one before. Of course, it won't be exactly the same bike, but most likely it will be an improvement. The other added benefit is that the person who buys one of my bikes will actually ride it and use it and enjoy it more than I even would. On top of that, the money that they give me in exchange just fuels more future builds, which I will be documenting on this channel for other people to also enjoy. So in an indirect way, this person is also helping to support this channel, which is pretty cool. I know we've all heard the line, "The things you own end up owning you." I believe this to be true. Consumerist culture loves to have you thinking that the more things that you have, the more status you get, or the more things you have, the happier you will be, but I would argue otherwise. You may have your own opinion about that, which is totally fine. You do you. Everyone is entitled to buy all the crap that they don't need with money they don't have. All I can say is from my own experience is that the opposite of what I was led to believe has turned out to be true. I'm by no means one of those minimalist people that just has a mattress on the floor and barren walls. Although I am getting there, I still do have a lot of stuff. And the things I do keep, I make sure they add value to my life in some regard, and if they don't, then I let them go. It may very well be psychosomatic, but I can feel mental tethers towards all the things I quote-unquote own. There is an inventory in my mind where all the things I have reside, and with each thing that I let go of, sell, or give away, another tether is freed up and my mind becomes more still. Anyway, with all of that long-windedness out of the way, this bike is actually for sale. It's by far the best and most expensive bike I have ever made. It's extremely fast, has a ridiculous amount of power. Aesthetically, it has all the things I personally like. I understand that it's not going to appeal to everyone or even that many people, but for those that are into this military, cyberpunk, industrial style, it has a lot of it. I'm not going to go over everything because I already have an entire build series on this bike, which if you're interested in purchasing this bike, I highly recommend watching that, as I will go over all the things I did and show you how I made it. But to quickly sum it up, it does have a SVMC 7200 controller, a 70 amp hour battery with a 200 amp BMS that will allow 300 amps peak. It has a QS 273 3.5T motor, and it tops out at 60 miles per hour, which is very scary, and I don't recommend that you do that too often, as it's far easier for bad things to happen at that speed. This bike has a ton of custom things on it, full RGB LED lighting kit with built-in controls via the custom dashboard, the UKC1 display with real-time speed, power usage, trip odometer, and much more. I honestly haven't used this bike that much. It's basically brand new. The battery has maybe only 5 full cycles on it, if that. I don't ever run the battery down past 70%, and I try to only charge it up to 90%. I have ridden 20 miles on it from a full charge, and the battery said it was only down to 80%. I'm not sure how far it would go exactly, but I think realistically 60 to 80 miles is totally doable. It may go even further, I'm not sure. It really depends on a lot of factors, which is why I can't really say exactly how far it will go, but it's a huge battery for an e-bike, that I am sure of. If you are interested in purchasing this, there are a few things that I would like to go over. One is the seat. I particularly like the exposed foam rubber style, but I could see if others did not. It's easy to change, however. You can just pull them up off the steel seat pan, clean it up, then either cover the foam with vinyl or leather, or make your own seat pad entirely to go on the top of the seat pan. I know the seat looks uncomfortable, but it's a lot more comfortable than it looks, and even riding for 40 plus minutes straight, I didn't feel uncomfortable. This is very subjective, however, as your riding position, how big your butt is, will make a big impact on how it feels. I just thought it's something I should go over. The other thing I wanted to touch on is these acrylic panels. Acrylic, while somewhat flexible, is mostly rigid and can be easy to crack. The top is fairly robust because it's supported on all sides, but these hovering side panels, you would want to be somewhat mindful of them. If you smash into them or press on them too hard, they could crack or break. Ideally, someone who buys this bike would ride it with care and attempt to preserve it as half art, half bike, but if you own it, you obviously can do whatever you want with it. I just wanted to at least say something about this, as if you did want to thrash on the bike, then perhaps either removing them for that time that you're doing that, or even having some made out of metal, as I still have all the template files, might be something to consider. So if you want the bike, how much does it cost? It's honestly a bit hard for me to put a price on it. On one hand, if you wanted to make something similar with similar parts, obviously you could do it for quite a bit less money, and if all you care about is the function over the form, my recommendation would be to just do that, and you would not be the kind of buyer that I'm looking for anyway, as it doesn't make any sense to me to solely buy this bike for the performance or mechanical aspects of it. This is more for someone who appreciates the art, the time that went into making it, the fact that there is only one of these in the world like it, someone who would want to preserve it, have pride in it, while also enjoying it and riding it, much like I have done during my ownership. With all that being said, if you are interested in owning this bike, please reach out to me with an offer in my Instagram or email me. I'll pin a comment down below with all that info and also update that comment when it is sold. I also have to ask that you please be respectful of my time, as I would be of yours. I'm very busy and request that you only reach out if you are serious and have the funding to back up that seriousness, as this is not a cheap bike. I could see shipping being an issue, so if you're within or close to California, that would be ideal, but I'm not opposed to shipping it to wherever, although I may leave this up to the buyer. Ideally, you'll want a motorcycle type transport going on, as I suppose it's possible to dismantle and crate the bike for freight, but I would be a lot more comfortable sending it via a motorcycle style transport. I also want to say that if you see an upcoming build and you want that, or if you have have a build you want made for you, you can reach out to me as well. For the reasons I described earlier in this video, that for the right price, I am willing to let go of my builds. I also have to give you guys a disclaimer that unfortunately I cannot offer any warranties whatsoever, as it is completely as is, where is. I don't foresee any issues with the bike, as I haven't experienced any while I owned it, but as is the nature with things like this, parts can break, electronics can fail, batteries can catch fire or explode. So if you are going to purchase this bike, you are taking on any and all responsibilities of it and for it, just to be very clear about that. Of course, if you have questions or issues after purchase, I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you have, but I pretty much try to help anyone who asks questions in my comment section anyway, so not much is different there. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and sharing your time. It is greatly appreciated. I have a lot more builds and progress on my existing projects on the way, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.